Hi, I'm Michelle Tennant Nicholson. I'm the Chief Creative Officer of Wasabi Publicity, and this is Real PR in Real Time. This is a six-part series. We're in 5 of 6. And in this one, we're going to be doing a question and answer series where we talk about preparing for media interviews. If you've actually are part of the series, you'll notice that there is an accompanying workbook, which is behind me right here, the 21-day PR action guide. And it's something that my business partner, Drew Gerber, and I wrote many years ago on the who, what, where, when, and how of PR. It's designed so that you can start to first message yourself powerfully and then go out to form media relationships. And when I say media, I mean traditional press, TV, radio. And if they're online today, it's going to look more like a radio podcast, or daily newspaper. What we're not talking about necessarily are influencers, and we'll get into that a little bit today, also about the distinctions there. So welcome, however you've come to us from an association or from pitchrate.com or from any other nook on the planet, you're welcome. Thank you for being with me. So today I'd like to just kind of introduce some of the people that have been on this journey with me. When I started, there was a lot of socializing with Stephanie. So Stephanie, why don't you unmute yourself and introduce yourself and just a little bit about your association so we can see you and hear you. There you go.
Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie Chandler. I run the Nonfiction Authors Association and Writers Conference, and I also run Authority Publishing, and I'm so excited to share Clayton's new book has arrived. It's hot off the press. So we've been kind of doing this concurrently while going through the PR campaign. It looks amazing. I mean, look at him, and such a handsome guy. So we're so proud of you, Clayton, and I am just honored to be on this journey with all of you. It is so fun to get to see so many faces too, live and in person. So Michelle, you've done a great job, and I think we've all been enjoying this very much.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that, Stephanie. And why don't we, I appreciate the acknowledgement. Truly, thank you for bringing the opportunity to me. And how about we hear from Clayton? I don't see him, but he's probably here. Clayton, do you see Clayton in the mix? Maybe he's still, sometimes he, when I've been meeting a lot with him. There he is.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon.
Hi, Clayton. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How is everyone doing today?
Good. Do you want to say anything about the experience? And hopefully it won't sound like Michelle's been overwhelming me in the past few weeks. So just, but that's okay if that's what's true.
No, I mean, it's been one heck of an experience. I mean, again, this opportunity, this journey I've been on, I can write a book on it itself. And I've just been so blessed to have, I don't think people understand out there, I have the best of the best in my corner. And without you guys, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys right now. And I'm going to try to limit this because I get choked up and it's still overwhelming. I just got the book a couple of days ago and I'm still in the clouds about it. And it's just wonderful. And like I said, I have to be right now the most blessed guy on this earth. And it's just an unbelievable experience I have.
Oh, Clayton, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. And so another person in his corner is Kristen. Kristen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. I'm Kristen Iris. I worked with Clayton on this book, and it's been so much fun. I think the best things are when Clayton texts at like 6:30 at night while I'm making dinner, and he's like, hey, guess what? I got the book. And it was funny because my husband had checked the mail and brought the package home, and it barely hit my desk before I grabbed it and ripped it open. It was like a kindergartner. I have to say, those of you on the call that have had a book published, my favorite days of the year are when I get my clients' advanced reader copies in the mail. So yeah, that's just a great day. So that was really fun. Clayton's always, I can always count on him to have an enthusiastic, like, yay, this is great thing. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I'm really grateful for you all for bringing this to Wasabi Publicity, and we're having such a fun time with the association. And then I also want to acknowledge everyone who's been on the journey with me during the pandemic. And one of the things that we've been doing is kind of like a giveaway, right? Friday coaching. And so when the pandemic started, I mean, one of my dreams was to wake up and to work virtually so that I could go whitewater kayaking. Okay. So I've been working virtually wherever I am since 2002. Okay. So the pandemic didn't hit me as hard as it hit other people because I was already working behind this setup, right? Zoom and whatnot. But I thought, gosh, people are really hurting. How can we give back? And that's when we said we could really coach people to get their voice out in a different way. One of the things that I wrote about in the blog this week, which you all can check out at any time, and then my blog, an easy way to remember my blog is the URL storytellertothemedia.com. Hannah will put that in the chat. But that I've been blogging at storytellertothemedia.com for years because that's my moniker. I really look at what I'm doing as just storytelling. So it's not if you look at how easy it is to tell a child a story, and I would venture to say there's probably one or two of you who say that that's not even easy. But as a former children's entertainer in college, I think it's pretty easy to actually entertain children. But that's basically, you're just storytelling. So maybe it's not the child analogy that gets you going. Maybe it's like sitting around a campfire with your friends and you're in the forest and you're about to tell a good, story about ghosts or whatever happened on the river that day or a good hike or something like that, or maybe fishing, right? And you're just telling the story to your friends like, no kidding, there I was, and this is what happened. Can you believe that? And then that's it. So if you can do that with your friends and you can do that with children, you can do this with your books, your organizations. We're just turning it into a story. So let's talk about that. I want you to get a piece of paper and a pencil ready as we talk, because as adults and with my master's degree in human development, you're going to have to bring yourself to the conversation, because it's as busy adults not only like if you're listening to this in the future, not in the pandemic, it's going to probably be just as busy, right? You've got life at you, laundry list, shopping list. Did the dog get fed? The dog is outside or inside? Is the dog going to use the bathroom inside or outside? I can't remember. Those types of things. So as we're talking and doing the lecture part of this, of the session today, I want you to write down questions, because there's going to be a time where we do breakouts and also Q&As. And so as things come up, I'm not going to stop and then answer them now. I'm going to answer them at the end of the session. So write down on a piece of paper the questions that come up. But more importantly, I want you to write elements of your story. So what are you actually, and we're going to be talking about dating. Okay. I know that's odd, right? Some of you are like, well, I'm already married, I don't need to date. But all that we're doing is matchmaking, really. So it's building relationships. So we want to be respectful of the people with whom we're talking. And I'm going to interact a little bit with Clayton about some of the media and like what's next. Okay. And we're going to be talking about them a little more than you all. So two things. So you might just fold your paper in half. On one side is going to be questions that I need to ask in the Q&A session. And on the other side, it's going to be your story. Like just as we talk, things that pop up about your book, your organization, your story. Okay. So if you're agreeing to bring the conversation to your story today, raise your digital hand or your physical hand, however is easiest for you. Okay, great. Now, another thing that we promised today is while everything's popping, right? When we do digital hands, everything pops. And so get used to that if you're not used to that. In the chat, I'd also like for you all to be able to buddy up. So there's been lots of questions about, I've written this pitch or that press kit or this, right? And there's over, I think when we did the last count, there was about 150 or so. So it's, I want you to be supported. And so if you didn't find a buddy at the beginning of the session, then I want you to find a buddy now. So use the chat room to connect with each other. Sometimes people disable that in a Zoom meeting. We do not. The whole point is that you are supported and that you have a team behind you. So whether you're paying someone to be your team or whether you need someone to volunteer their time and then reciprocate with you, you give them time, they give you time. That's fine with us. Okay. You shouldn't feel shy about getting the support that you need. And for those of you who have written me or Hannah needing that support, this is what we intentionally put in today's meeting just for you. So go ahead and get the support you need, buddy up. Okay. Now, consistency. So we're going to talk about consistency, but we're also going to talk about a basketball analogy. So don't tell everybody else, I am not a watching sports kind of person. I love to mountain bike. I love to kayak. I do not go and watch sports, right? But I know that a lot of people do. So tell me by a show of hands, digital or otherwise, or however is easiest for you, whatever you like. Have you ever seen a sports game? Is that a trick question, Michelle? And then I should also get into the questions of, as a child, did you play sports and were you successful or unsuccessful? And how did that set up the rest of your life? And then that's a topic for your book. But no, we don't want to go there, right? What we're going to talk about is being on the court and off the court. So right now, and I don't even need to know, I'm not going to ask you to do your hands on this one because it's kind of like a private answer. So just write it down on your paper. If you want to share it with us, you're welcome to put it in the chat. How many people like sometimes I watch YouTube lately because I'm really missing teaching spinning classes. Sometimes I'll watch YouTube exercise videos and I'm not exercising. Okay. That's called in the stands. If I'm on the couch, eating, drinking, and watching Body Fit by Amy and watching Amy do her thing, that is, I know you all do it too. We all are like, yeah, I probably should get up there and do that with her. Oh, it looks so hard, that one though. I'm just going to sit down on this one and just drink my coffee while she just does this plank that looks super difficult. Okay. That's in the stands. That is like you're watching, you're observing, maybe you're reading something. So if you need to declare right now that you've been doing this series like that, just get it out and be honest about it right now. You put it on your paper if you want to be private about it. Tell your buddy in the room, just tell one other person. Or if you just want to come clean, just put it in the chat. Nobody's going to judge you because we've all been there. Okay. It's not too late to get on the court, to play ball. Get in there and shoot, right? Awesome. Awesome. People are being so honest. Yeah, there's going to be some of you who are just like, I have no idea what she's been talking about for the last few sessions, and I'm still completely confused. And I don't even know what page I'm supposed to be on in that book. That kind of stuff. No problem. Don't worry about it. You can still move forward from here. Okay. How do you get on the court though? So up to this point, we've only been, I've taken the curtain behind. We've been talking about PR. And the thing that, by the way, I'm on an exercise ball because I literally did do that with Body Fit by Amy's videos this week. Okay. So I'm on my bouncy ball just so that I can actually exercise a little bit while constantly being in front of Zoom. I highly recommend it. Much better for your spine. But let's talk about how you can actually do your PR on the court. So I did this little compromise, right? I'm challenged by the pandemic because I used to go to the gym in the mornings and then I would come home and then that would kind of set up my day in a particular way. So what structures do you have? What structures don't you have? I want you to start to kind of write that down for yourself and what do you need to put in for yourself? So I was like, okay, I'm not going to make myself wrong about these YouTube videos. They're not my favorite thing. I like to be with people in a gym environment, right? So then what was going to get me on the court? Baby steps, like little bitty things that I'm like, well, if I'm not willing to do X, then what am willing to do? And I want you to ask yourself that right now. So probably why, if you're in the stands, if you're just kind of observing and watching Clayton move forward with his book out into the world, chances are something scares you, or there's something that if it's not, I'm too busy, I'm too scared, I'm overwhelmed. What's behind that? And that's where I really like pull forward my human development work and all the personal development courses I've done and go, okay, well, what is actually stopping me? What am I actually afraid of? Right? Or what's in the way? Could be just something in the way. Like you've got an obligation that's preventing you from picking up the phone or something. So let's break it down into bite-sized pieces. And today, just for today, what's one story that you can talk about your book or your platform, your life, and just put maybe 5 other people in the mix, okay? You're going to tell that story to 5 other people. You can get it done in this environment right here because we're going to do breakout soon. But maybe after we get off the phone or the Zoom, maybe you could just actually take action just to see what happens. And just expect failure. Sometimes I don't want to get on the phone, even as a publicist, right? And I'm like, ugh. And then I just call and I just start talking to the receptionist. And even if I get yelled at, I have to sometimes go take a break and get support from Hannah or somebody else. Like, oh, I just got yelled at. Can you just feel sorry for me for a second? Right? Those kinds of things. Other times it's like, oh my God, I can't believe that I got on the phone and this happened today. Right? That happened to me on Wednesday. One of my most favorite comedians in the world. I was on the phone with his manager this week, and I was like, I had gotten tickets to his concert for my anniversary one year. And it was just like, oh, I love my job, like one of those moments, right? Okay. Now, so I want to do a breakout session, and I just want you to talk about, if you're in the stands watching and observing, what's going to actually get you on the court. If you've already been on the court and really applying yourself, what's stopping you from taking the next step? Is it because you're failing and you don't know what to do next? Or is it because something else is in the way? Or maybe you're just doing great and you just want to maybe you've already gotten a placement and you actually want to, you've got an interview and you're like, get to the meat of the call and tell me how to do this interview. That's fine too. Okay. So we're just going to do a quick break, and it's all about in the stands or on the court. And my intention is to get you on the court no matter where you are. Okay. Consistency. So what we're talking about is consistency and the level of time that you think that it takes to get a placement. So let's talk about breaking news placements. And people think, oh, breaking news, it's happening within a 24-hour time frame. I'm going to get it instantly, right? Well, I want to hear from you. I'm going to magazine, newspaper, TV, radio, podcast. Just in the chat right now, tell me the times that you think that it takes to get each of those. So you can put TV, and then the time that you think it takes to get a TV interview, magazine, and the time that you think that it takes. Okay, we've got some votes for 6 to 12 months. Okay, what else? Anyone else? What are your guesses? Maybe it's the same day. Somebody else said years for TV. A week, months, a few days. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing PR for 31 years now. I started it when I was 20. Today I'm 51. And here's what I've seen through the years. And I'd say 2000-ish, right? About that time. So it's different also than the 80s and the 90s, right? In the 90s, we were still dealing with paper exchanges, faxing, snail mail, things of that nature. So back in the day, it would just for one magazine or newspaper placement, something like that, it would take weeks. Now with the internet and the use of technology, which is something that we specialize in at Wasabi Publicity because of our online press kits. And by the way, if you haven't seen Clayton's online press kit, you can go to the blog at storytellertothemedia.com, which is Wasabi Publicity's blog, and you can see links to his kit. Okay. I did all that in this week's blog for you. What happened with the onset of the internet is that it did get faster, but I think it's still surprising. So in general, what I see is for a magazine placement, a glossy magazine, something that you see in the grocery store or a bookstore, Definitely 6 months. 6 months. 3 to 6 months. If it's a regional magazine, like your parents' magazine or senior issues or pets, that you can kind of see in and around town, maybe they're freebies that you can just pick up. They usually work on a month lead, 1 to 2 months. If it's a daily newspaper, they need about 2 weeks. They like 2 weeks. They get a little antsy if you make them work less than 2 weeks, with the notice. TV talk shows, a month. So the stuff that you're seeing on the talk shows typically today has been in the works for a while. Now, what may change that is cable news, and they're hard news. And so they're going to call their experts at a moment's notice, and then it's like 2 or 3 hours. So if I don't pick up the phone and answer them because I'm on a Zoom call with you, they're going to move on to another person. So those are the ones that you're seeing like on Fox, CNN, Don Lemon, like all those evening Fox shows and CNN shows that basically are saying the same thing against each other. Okay. They're lining up all their people right now for tonight. Okay. Also with our comedy shows and they're all creating their content daily. Radio, couple weeks, podcast, couple months. Let's just take as an example a BBC placement we had at the beginning of the pandemic. We had a doctor who talked about wet markets. So she called us and she was like, I need to get into the conversation now. I was like, well, wet markets the conversation started in February. So you're already behind the ball. So it's already too late, right? I told her that. I said, but you can get in on the tail end of the conversation because I don't know how long the pandemic is going to have this conversation, which is what we did. And she was mentioned in the BBC, but it took 8 weeks. That was breaking news. So she was shocked by that too, right? So a lot of times, and then what wins the day? It's this relationship, this consistency. Think about you. Think about what you respond to. It's people who build a relationship with you, send you emails, they might phone call you. They're like, whether it's professional or personal, they have a relationship with you over time. Okay. It's not just a one and done. And then people get so mad about, oh, well, this reporter didn't do this or this journalist didn't, because they're doing their job. They're getting the news cycle out there. They're not there to promote you. That's not their job, to promote you. You're there to actually help them. I'm going to tell you an example. I usually go to Manhattan and I meet with people face to face. And when I say people, I mean press people, like TV people, radio, things of that nature. And all those meetings are now being done on Zoom. And last night I was up till about 10 p.m. in this session where we were pitching people. And most of the people I was with, they were mostly authors or doctors or experts of their, and then I'm a publicist coming in. I have more than one pitch, one story. And there was a woman in my group last night. I'm not going to say names because I didn't get her permission to talk about this, but let's just say she was an icon. I knew her from my women's literature days at college. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's so-and-so, right? She literally started to get into it with one of the podcasters, right? Because there was a disconnect about what he needed and then what she was giving in her line of books. And I was just looking at this and I was like, God, what a missed opportunity. You've got this author who's literally an icon on the planet and this podcaster who's really trying to say, no, well, what could you talk about? Well, you tell me what I can talk about. And you're thinking like there was a disconnect because the relationship wasn't there. There wasn't an opening for a relationship, a friendship. And I wanted to talk about that with you because above all else, your relationship with the press people is what matters. So how you treat people, how you treat them on the phone, and also how they're treating you tells you a lot about the future of that relationship. Consistency. So never make it personal. they're just doing their job, if you start to take them not getting back to you as a sign of your self-worth, you will never win in the press game. You've got, as my mother said, Michelle, you have to have thick skin. I don't think you're going to make it in business because you're too sensitive, is what she said to me as a teenager, you know, because I would cry at the drop of the hat, right? Oh, they said that to me. Okay. So let's talk about, so we've got some media interviews that we're preparing Clayton for. Next session, I'm going to actually coach him and get you ready for your media interviews, Clayton, okay? Because Clayton's like real interested in like, what's next? What's next? And that I will make sure that you are prepared for everything, okay? So you can also look in the workbook for how to prepare for a media interview, but I want you focus first on that relationship. So when we look at a relationship, let's talk about connections. So right now, reflect on the connection you just had in the breakout session. And then write that down on your paper. Was it great? Was it bad? Was your Zoom connection solid? Was it shaky? Could you hear each other? Could you not hear each other? Could you read their name? Was their name legible? Was it a full name? Was it not? Like, what about the technology enhanced or detracted from the relationship building? Because that's everything today. I literally, in the past 2 weeks, spent, I have a client who's a pioneer in his industry. And, you know, he's like my mom, right? Like he does really well with technology, and it's rough it's tough trying to get like, I click what, where, when, how. And I just like, you got this. You will keep getting after it. Just keep practicing Zoom. Just keep practicing, like the filter guy, right? The cat, right? So he's live in court and he's like, Judge, I'm not a cat. And there he is, you know, got a fat cat filter. And right now you should play right now, like what's actually happening. You can turn your filter on or off. Here, let's all just turn the filter on and off. Let's just practice a little bit. I'm practicing my Zoom. I bet you didn't even know that filters existed, okay? Let's just all put a different picture. I like to practice with this filter. There you go. Hi, Julia. Julia and I, great minds think alike, right? And then turn it off. But it's in the situations where it's non-stressful that I want you to practice. Oh, sweet Tracy. Tracy's got some nice stuff on her. Exactly. Where are filters? Good. So by your mute button at the bottom, then there's a stop video button. At the stop video, it looks like a little camera. And then there's a little caret. You click on that caret and it'll say like, select a camera, choose virtual background, choose video filter and whatnot. Right. Everybody's like, my browser's too antiquated. Hey, this is the time to find out. Because when you're on with press and you don't know how to change something, you don't know how to change your name. Clayton, change your name. Your name has got a space in it. Right. And that, so look at each other's like, what's not working. And this is the time to help each other out right now. Right. We want, and I know it seems like, oh, I know. Right? Those of you who are like, oh, I know how to do this. Okay. I just want you to know that when you're live on the air with Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, and you know millions of people are watching and something goes awry, if you don't know how to solve it in a second, that is stress you've never felt before. That was me last year. So I handled it, and you don't know that I didn't handle it, but you know, Hannah, like my heart was like crazy that day. So let me see, then go back. And so then you got to take your filters off. So how do you take your filters off? Anyway, so be playing around with that. Okay, there you go, Marcia. Perfect. So the other thing is so you can't build a relationship if the technology doesn't work. If your email is messed up, if your phone is messed up, you know, there back in the day before cell phones were really solid. If you were caught pitching a press person, producer, or a journalist with a cell phone, they would hang up on you because they couldn't hear you. You know, the technology's gotten better now. They can't tell the difference. But at one point they would say, is your person going to call in on a landline or a cell phone? Today, it's a little different as long as you're hardwired. So think about the technology. And the next thing really is about the relationship of that person to prepare them to make their job easier. So I want to interact with a press person in the room. And I know Marjorie is. So if we don't have another press person, let's at least have Marjorie. I don't see her. Marjorie, let's unmute you. Oh, Katie's also somebody that we can call upon.
And Marvin Glassman, I believe.
All right, Katie, Marjorie, Marvin.
Yep.
Let's get our press people.
Yep.
Okay. How do you want your people to dress? Can you undo more than one person at a time? I guess we can't. We'll do round robin. First, Marjorie. Marjorie, you're print basically. So do you care? We also have a TV show now too, don't you?
I do. And I also, whenever I interview someone, I need either a photograph that they provide, or I typically, when I can be in person, I need to take a photograph of them. So I want to make sure that not only will they let me take a picture, but they don't make it hard for me to take a picture. Some people get really weird about photography.
Right.
Yeah. Please just let me do my job.
Yes. And then do you want them to send you interview questions in advance of your interviews? Do you want
I don't
to help you or
typically
hurt you?
I don't typically know. I'd like to know a little bit about what their story is, so I know where to go, but that's never been something I've done with preset questions.
Do you
Other
like
people do
sound bites?
differently.
Do you like to
I always what I say is give me a pithy quote, and it always makes people laugh, and that's okay too, because then it loosens them up a little.
Do you know, I'm going to tell everybody a little secret. If I were preparing you to be interviewed by Marjorie, to get Marjorie's attention, I would say this: start your soundbite with a cliche, because Marjorie will use it as catnip. I love the little cat analogy all day today. So it goes like this: Marjorie, at the end of the day, it's important that people create sound bites. And you'll be like, oh, let me write that down, right?
Sure.
Right. The bottom line is, right?
Yep.
Cliches, it's just like a visual cue, right? Or I mean, an audible cue, like, hey, pay attention, right? It's like to underscore something.
Oh yeah, I try really hard not to abuse that, and the point is that you don't want to get a gotcha, and there's different kinds of press. My press is never looking for a gotcha. I'm looking to make the people I interview look better.
Yeah, I would say to everybody that you're not interacting with gotcha press. So investigative journalists, if you're about to be if you're called and you have a sense that you're going to be in an investigative situation, call me for media training. Hannah at wasabipublicity.com will take care of you. Okay. That is a different way to interact with, the short answer is the giveaway for everybody is that you repeat a little bit of the question, and whatever answer that you give, you make it a little harder to edit. That's how you handle that. All right. Thanks, Marjorie. How about Katie? Katie, do you care about how people dress before your interview? And then like technology dress, questions ahead of times, and sound bites? What do you think?
Yes, it depends. So for dressing, absolutely. I deal, as I've said before, with mostly athletes. And so there tends to be a much more casual look. However, a lot of times they have deals with sponsors. So they might be a Nike or an Adidas athlete. So I remind them to please wear, if they're going to wear something with a brand, that it has the brand of their sponsor. The other thing is I will, because a lot of the athletes, I work in the soccer, professional soccer world. And so a lot of the guys that I work with haven't had a lot of media training, like a lot of other athletes in basketball or football would have. And so, but they don't even realize they need it. And they think it's going to make them sound more like too prepared or too not kind of natural enough. So it's trying to do a lot of education with them in regard to, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to prepare you so that actually that funny story that happened to you last week comes out well, and it isn't stilted because you're trying to remember all the details of it or something like that. So I usually will send the producers I do a lot of work with podcasts, especially soccer related, and I'll send the producers a lot of information so that they don't have to do as much of the research themselves, because they're usually kind of working on a shoestring budget, trying to get their podcasts out.
That's great, Katie. So yeah, what she's pointing to is that you shouldn't mention a brand unless they're paying you, right?
Yep.
A bad example of what I've used all day today in our session is I've mentioned Zoom. I probably should just say video chat, because they're not paying me. And what happens when you get on national TV and you start mentioning a brand, they think that you're being paid. Like that's the world we live in. So if you continually mention a brand, Nike, whatever, they just assume that you're being paid to mention those brands.
Yep.
Okay, because that's why you're doing interviews, is because you're on a tour of some sort or something like that. Or you're, again, also clothing. If you've got, I always laugh when people give me clothing that has a brand name on it, and I'm like, thank you, no thanks, I won't wear that. And they go, well, why not? I'm like, well, unless I believe in the brand or they're paying me, I'm not going to do free advertising. And that's just a publicist speaking, right? But that's the way to kind of to think about it. When Katie actually trains her people, so the way to think about, yeah, because there is a resistance, right, Katie? Like people are like,
Yeah.
I don't want to sound too polished.
Right.
What happens when you do that interview later and it's so edited, or you're like, God, I really rambled and it didn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So you want to really, here's your quick media training bites. Choose 3 words, right? The power of 3. 3 words, put them into 3 words. And then I siphon at whatever. I always ask a client, what do you want the audience to be left with? Like when you're done with the interview, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to be? How do you want them to be educated, inspired? And then there's 3 things, and we siphon it down to 3 things. And then whatever those 3 things are, to 3 words. And so in my head, going into any interview, I know, okay, like right now to prepare for this section with my business partner, we have in dress, right? Expertise, sound bites. And then you can just, that's your anchors. Think of them as your anchors. And that's what really media prep is all about. And you want to start with credibility, establish your credibility, talk about what's in it for the viewer, listener, reader, and then a call to action. And the call to action can be about their lives. It can be about a free giveaway that you have, depending on if it's top national. They're not going to be like, oh, give me your free giveaway, and we're going to do, joint newsletter sharing, things of that nature, which is so popular today with influencers. It's fine with influencers, but don't do that with Good Morning America, because Good Morning America wants everybody to go to their website. So just instead give them some great copy to go along with your segment that they can put on the website for you, with you. Okay. Thank you, Katie. Marvin. All right. How do you, connections with people? Marvin Glassman. Let's unmute him. Dressing, media expertise, sound bites, and things of that nature. Your pet peeves and whatnot.
Well, I'm a little like Katie in the sense that for most of my career, I've mainly been interviewing people in professional sports. I've also branched into writing about people in the cultural arts. And in 90% of the interviews, it's really a situation that I'm either writing a profile of the person. And in that sense, I just want them to be relaxed and tell me all about their career and their life. Or I'm writing an evaluation of their performance, which is a little bit harder because if they had a bad day at the game, they can't make excuses for why did he miss the field goal or why he didn't score a touchdown. But all I really want, and I hope they feel the same way, is you want them to be honest. And I know that everybody has an agenda. As a journalist, you want your story to be as entertaining as possible, but also truthful. And what you really want to do for the athlete or the or the musician or the comedian to prepare is just basically say what's important in their life. And that's the way I write. I'm not really looking for anything about their life like to track that. I'm not trying to look for any extraneous stuff. I really feel over the years what made my articles very well read by many of my readers was the fact that I go into a lot of detail that you won't see in a television broadcast. And so this is what I'm really looking for, a lot of details. So the more that they come prepared in the interview to talk about their lives or the significance of this particular event, the better off I am, better off that my readers are, and hopefully they will feel very good that they were very, very open about themselves.
That's wonderful, Marvin. I want everybody to notice that with our examples, the differences of what the journalists are looking for, and that you establish that with your relationship. So with Marvin, you'd want to ask him, what do you want? And you can say in the interview, is this giving you what you need? You be a real human being. They're real human beings. Right, Marvin?
Yeah.
You're just doing your job. So people get nervous, they do whatever they need, but just so Marvin's going to want the scoop. He's a print reporter, right? He's going to want the scoop. He's at the basis of what Marvin does, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marvin. You're really educating people, your readers, on the topic.
Yeah, the word, I don't like the word education because the opposite, as you know, is then to imply that people that are not education are not educated. I like the word informed. And I have to use that word as well. We don't like it, but it's all part of it. We're also entertainers. I have to write in a dramatic style. I have to write a very, very impressive dramatic lead. Otherwise, the people are going to bypass my article for something else in the newspaper or maybe not watch. So unfortunately, that's part of the truth business now. Journalism used to be maybe a little more matter of fact. And now, especially in the area of sports and cultural arts, I'm not trying to say we embellish things, but we try to be colorful, because if we're not colorful, we're going to end up with boring copy, and I don't want to be known as a boring writer.
Perfect. I couldn't have said it better. So that was the whole section about what you want to give them. I mean, that's exactly what we laid out in the workbook. Inspire, entertain. Now, I will say that in my relationships with, thank you, Marvin, thank you, Marjorie, we can all acknowledge our journalists in the room, okay? I think that it's important to know like what they need, right? And so with broadcast, it's the entertainment value is a little more intense because people they click onto something else, right? So it's very dramatic.
Can I add anything with it? You can't have dead air with broadcast.
Right.
So don't make me the interviewer keep doing lots of work. With my cable show that I do. Don't leave me hanging there. If I ask you a question, answer it, but don't just answer it with a phrase or something. Embellish. Give me a little something to work with and give me something to respond.
Maybe a story, maybe a good story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's always back to making you're there to make them look good. Okay. They're not there to sell your book. They're not there to sell your organization or anything like that. You're there to make them look good and get their job done.
Yeah.
So that's really as far as like also creating sound bites, that comes with practicing your pitch, and it may change from topic to topic. But let's actually like move into that now with the remaining of our time. So you've written down on your story side the interesting things that you could actually tell in your interview. That's really the heart of media preparation, and then siphoning that down to 1, 2, 3 words. Okay. And we're going to actually do an example of that next week with Clayton. Okay. And that'll be our last session. Doesn't mean it's our last rodeo though, because as like I say, the consistency of pitching, we've only really just begun, with the pitching and so forth. But let me open up the room now for questions and just take your questions for the rest of the time. We're probably going to go a little 5 minutes over. Hannah, is that okay with you? Yes. Okay. So what are the questions? Somebody says, when you're getting interviewed, please, Victoria and Gary Buckman have a question they would like to. You can raise your hand like this, or you can put it in the digital hand. When I say digital hand, that means under participants, and you can actually raise your hand. I see people practicing. This is a safe place to practice your Zoom. Try anything that you want, even if it means disconnecting yourself. You can always log back on, okay? So Victoria.
Thank you. I
right.
teach sales magic, and one of the first things I teach people is make a friend first. And that's exactly what you were talking about relationships. So my question is, where do I go to find and connect with these media people?
Their website.
Well, if I don't know their name, or, you know, Marjorie or Katie, or.
Yeah, I would Google them. If you're talking about a TV show, like let's say you are enamored with something on Dr. Oz, record it and then slow it down at the end with the credits and write down names of who you see.
Okay, and then from
then
that,
Google them, and then everybody's got social media. If you're a journalist or a producer or a publicist or any one of you, you should have a social media presence. It was funny. There was it's interesting, you know, like people doing PR and then they don't have a presence online. It happens. I'm sure some of you have varying levels of presence online. If you want to play the public game, and that's all this is getting on the court of the public voice, you've got to have something online. And it could be as simple as LinkedIn. Okay. So Victoria, just go to their website. Every website is going to have a contact me button, and they'll tell you how to contact them. Some shows actually say be on the show. And then reporters, if you're unsure, go to the contact me button, pick up the phone and call that receptionist. They're adorable. They're super sweet, and they will tell you what to do. I mean, for years, I would just call the receptionist as my first go-to. Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a publicist. I have a story scoop for, you know what, and it wasn't Marvin Glassman. It was like Chuck or whoever, right? I want to get in front of Chuck, tell me about Chuck, right? And the receptionist, he or she will talk to you all day long. Trust me. Hold on, though. Hold on. I come back to you because I got to get this call. And then they'll do their job and they'll come back and they're like, what else do you want to know? They're adorable. Not all of them. Some of them are mean, but for the majority of people, they're nice. Okay.
Okay, great.
All right.
And so same thing with magazines. You're just going to look in the back and it's going to be there.
No,
somewhere.
the magazines, it's not the back. It's right there in the front. Yeah, Kristen wants to jump in.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's called the masthead. Go to the masthead and then you'll see the different editors of the different sections of the newspaper. And that's where you would go to pitch those specific editors. And always make it, if there's a name attached to the section that you want to connect with, always use the name. Don't do to whom it may concern or anything like that.
Dear sirs. Do not say dear sirs. Delete. I know, because we do international press, right? So a lot of times I'll get a dear sir and I'll be like, anyway.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, I want to have Alvin and Dawkins and I have a question for Stephanie. Alvin, you want to ask it?
Actually, I didn't write or type it in my notepad. I thought you did, so you might want to feel like.
Oh, well, okay, I'll recreate it for us. So Alvin and I were talking about we're in the middle, Alvin's in the middle of writing his book. And so what are resources at the association, Stephanie, when you're in the middle of writing your book? And then I'll answer the other question that Alvin and I were talking about, is like, should you do PR when your book's not even finished? So Stephanie, why don't you take the first question about what the association has for new writers? I'm actually interested in that.
Thank you both for that question. We have a ton of educational content. I don't know of another association, and I can see some of our members nodding. Like, we have so much educational content. So I would say get in there and start learning, because one of the biggest mistakes I think writers make is waiting until the book is out to start getting ready to market, right? So you kind of want to get that process started while you're writing. I know it's a lot, but start getting your website ready, start building your social media presence. And by the way, I don't think social media is the end all be all that it's been made out to be for years. I think you should pick one or two and do those well, but you don't need to be everywhere. Social media is not what sells books. You are what sells your books. So we also, as members, have a private Facebook forum. So if you enjoy connecting with each other, we have a really supportive group there. And we have our conference coming up in May. So just a ton of resources. Alvin,
Stephanie, tell people what's happening in the chat right now is people want you to repeat the name of the association and the website.
It's nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. Also nonfictionwritersconference.com. We'll be announcing our speakers soon. So we'd love to see you over there. And you can always reach out to me if you have any questions. Stephanie at nonfictionauthorsassociation.com. I also had some questions about publishing. It's authoritypublishing.com. And I'd love to chat with any of you. This has been so much fun.
Thanks, Stephanie. So as she said, it's important that you not only get the information that you need before your book is finished. Some people actually use the publicity that they, the interaction with the press to inform the book. Because you can imagine, like if you're talking to people like Marjorie or Marvin or Katie, they're going to have a certain way of asking you questions because they're used to dealing with providing public information. So they're going to be in a conversation of what interests the public, and that informs your book. So Julia Coldstein has a question. Let's unmute her, and then Tracy.
All right. Yeah, so about an interesting thing about contacting journalists and not having them feel like you're sucking up to them. Like there was one where I looked her up and I saw this book she'd written. I'm like, oh, I need to read that book. It's related to my topic. And I read it and I said, oh, this is a great book. And I reviewed it and I shared with her, you know, I reviewed your book, and she still ignored me. So I don't know if she felt like, oh, I was just being, you know, like sucking up to her and trying to get publicity because she didn't know me before this. I don't know.
Did you ever see that Sex and the City episode, He's Just Not That Into You?
I don't recall.
Everybody's laughing.
I mean, I might have. I don't remember.
Wasn't it Sex and the City? I'm not being paid by Sex and the City, okay? So he was like, okay. So there's this, I think it was, there's an interaction between two women, and one is like, I don't know why he's not calling me back. Like we went on this great date and it was really wonderful, and we we were really hitting it off, right? Hit all the similar things. And then the girlfriend's like, he's just not that into you. That's why he didn't call you back. It's a no. It's a no. I would say, Julia, it's a no right now. It's never like an outright no unless they say, stop calling me. I'm going to get a restraining order. Okay. Consistency is the key. So it's also in the way that you follow up. Okay. So the follow-up is being of service. So it's not, hey, how come you didn't interview me yet? It's, I'm going to do Katie, right? So Katie, if I was following up with Katie about her sports stuff, I would be like, hey, Katie, guess what? I just met this guy. He's a professional NFL guy, and he's actually using a salt flotation tank. Do you know about the salt flotation tanks? That's a client of mine. He's a book on how he pioneered the salt that Tom Brady's using it, Steph Curry's using it. And then Katie's going to be like, oh, I'm interested. But see, it's not about anything other than being of service to the topic at hand for her. Does that make sense, Julia? I'm like, see you process.
Yeah. So I'm like, whatever I pitched before, it just wasn't.
Yeah, it's a no. Pitch something else. And then start with news.google.com or whatever news service. I'm not paid by them either. Whatever, news service that you like. I like news.google.com because it's quick. I also use Twitter sometimes just to see what's trending. And then my main source of when I'm having my coffee in the morning, I watch headline news just because it's quick and I can get like what I've missed. And then sometimes I channel surf because I like to hear what Fox is saying. I also like to hear what CNN's saying. I also like to hear what Newsmax, OAN, The View. I like to channel surf just to kind of hear everybody's perspective. Because I'm always pitching, it's not my voice I'm pitching my client's voice. And your publicist better always pitch your voice, not hers or his, okay? So just hang out with that just a second. I can see that you're still absorbing it. Just try something new. Okay. It'll feel like, and just don't give up, Julia. Okay. We're here if you need us. Okay. Tracy, Kristen, did you have a comment about Julia's thing? Okay. Hold on just a second. No.
No, I actually have a question if nobody else has raised their hand.
Oh no, Tracy's next and then Kristen.
Okay.
All right, Tracy.
Real quick, I've been working on a mosaic project for my city for 5 years. It's been put off and postponed like so many times. It's taken 5 years. And now I'm kind of at a point where I've got my permits. I can set a date for the install, and I'm not sure, like I follow one of the main art critics of the LA Times on Facebook, and he writes incredibly insightful articles, not just about art. The art critic that he is like the art that he criticizes, like this really highbrow stuff. And, you know, my mosaic looks like this, it's for kids. So is it okay to approach like the primary art critic of like a major newspaper on something for children that, you know, and he's normally, and is it okay to do it on his Facebook blog that I comment on and kind of interact with him? It's mostly one-sided because he gets hundreds of comments on his articles that he writes. Is it okay to approach him there, or is there a better place to find him? Do I use his like LA Times address and send him an email, or find him on Twitter?
Okay, I got the whole world of it. Okay, there's just a few. I'm going to coach you just a little bit. Okay, Tracy. Okay, so number one, you look great. I would put a green screen behind you so your art pops. Okay, so look up videos on green screen. And then I know a little bit because we were sharing in a past breakout session. If you do get on a Zoom call with him or something like that, have a t-shirt that reflects your name or your URL or something like that. Okay. But I want your artwork is so beautiful, have it pop, but with the green screen. Now, the other question is, how do you then get them to pay attention to you? So my recommendation to you is to start with somebody less, you're very attached to this guy. I can hear it in your voice. You're very attached that he pay attention. Okay. So practice with somebody that you're less attached to. So maybe like a kids magazine editor. Okay. And then just try to get a relationship together with a magazine editor of the children's magazine, or a mommy blogger. And then just have an interaction about what excites them about your work, and see where the sweet spot is for kids between that public opinion and then your body of work, so that it gets outside of you just a bit. And then meanwhile, not like a stalker, but just like a committed fan, when you're committed to his work, then when you've gotten like, oh, I've got a little bit of information about why my work is so important here, form a relationship based on the work that you see him doing. Oh, I've noticed that you were writing about this and the art trends that you're seeing with this. Well, you know what? I was just talking to this mommy blogger, and you know, for kids, what's important is blah, blah, blah. And then kind of tie in what you're seeing. But right now, you're very attached to this guy. And usually what I do before, because I always have, like, I have my heart's desire for Clayton. Right. But I know that Clayton needs a little more local love before I go to my top, because the minute that I get them interested in Clayton, they're going to be like, give me some local TV interviews with him. Give me, some articles, give me all of this stuff. And I've got to build not only myself and the way that I'm pitching Clayton, but also Clayton himself. So I'm going to practice with people less scary. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Good question. Very good. Is there anything else?
Well, if let's say my installation happened in 2 weeks, I don't have time to build those things.
Okay.
And I'm not so much married to Christopher, Knight. He's the only art critic that I really know off the top of my head from the LA Times. Okay. Like, should I go to other sections of the newspaper?
Yeah, it's a time issue. So your installation is happening and you're at 2 week marker. You just need to call the assignment desk editor and just say, hey, this is what's happening. I just want you all to know about it. Call the photo editor. because
Okay.
you're a visual story. So the photo editor at the LA Times would probably be the one to come out and actually cover the installation, not the art critic or, you know.
Right. Maybe it's a public interest thing.
Now
It's
maybe it's the education beat reporter, even. That's a little more of a stretch, but because you have a children's angle with it, that might be something. But I think typically when I have a visual story like yours, I go photo editor.
photo editor.
And
Okay.
then let's say they all say no, okay? Because you've got breaking news around you and they just say no to you. Hire your own photographer, get your own assets together. So
Mhm.
you cover the installation yourself so that you can then share that with the press,
Okay. Great.
right? So your own make sure you don't just get somebody who's, I can't tell you how many beautiful moments have been ruined by an amateur photographer.
Right.
And you're just like, I've had like these beautiful moments. One time that was like Christmas morning, a child was getting gifted a puppy from Santa. Like it was as beautiful as like you can imagine, right? And it was on somebody's smartphone and it was like this big and couldn't use it.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, that's how I felt. So just make sure that your client, well, you are using a professional situation when you record it all.
Okay.
But try to go for the photo editors first, okay? Stephanie?
Hey, I just wanted to chime in and suggest that maybe you also team up with a local nonprofit or something like that. We in Sacramento, before the pandemic hit, there was a big art exhibit which tied in with a local mental health nonprofit. So we got a ton of publicity. It was just really well interested. And then I used to own a bookstore, and the best way we got publicity was when we supported the local cat sanctuary. They didn't want to hear about author appearances. They wanted to hear we were doing a fundraiser for cats.
Okay.
Yeah, and there are people in the chat room now talking about that the subject of the installation. So, you know, like the creatures that you have as the subject of the artwork, you could do history of that, right? Aquarium, you know, getting the nonprofits or the museums or the activist groups that maybe impact the pet, the seahorse, for example, or something like that, right?
Well, it's part of a greater initiative rolled out by Mayor Garcetti called the Great Street Initiative, and it's part of beautifying this 1 mile section of street where in the little subset of LA where I live called Mar Vista, which means ocean view, which is why everything's a sea creature in the thing, and it's going in front of our local public library.
So you
So
already
We
have
got a
the
lot of-
library
yeah.
and the mayor, and
I know,
you already
like
got
that,
those.
you had me at mayor. So the other thing is also look for partnerships of that mayor's department. Like they're going to have their own publicist who's very motivated to do the pitching for you.
okay.
Mhm. Yes.
So call the mayor's publicist, and she'll be called something different, like an information officer or a press secretary, or he. I don't mean to be sexist, everybody, but that, you know, and just tie it into somebody else's platform, and then they'll do the work for you.
Okay, great.
Hey, I've got some artwork that's some really great visuals, and I'm willing to do a mosaic demo if you want to get me on TV. I bet you have connections.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Let us know. We want to see you on in 2 weeks. We want to see a big spot on that. KTLA is they love that kind of stuff. Call KTLA.
Oh, you're right. KTLA. Right.
They're independent. Yeah, they love that stuff.
Channel 5.
All right, one more question because
Thank
I've really
you.
taken. You're welcome, Tracy. Anybody else?
Can I do mine?
Yes, Kristen.
Okay, so one of the things that I really love to do with my clients, just because I like to network and I like to talk to people and promote my clients whenever it's appropriate, is, I mean, it kind of crosses the line into some publicity at times, but I'm not a publicist and I don't want to take on that full job. But how would be the best way for me to go about perhaps pitching a client to a press person or a magazine when I come across those people? And I tend to do a lot of nonfiction, so let's keep it on the nonfiction side of things.
Well, I will pitch myself in my relationships, right? So, hi, I'm an international publicist. I have endless sources and story ideas for you. And
Well, but I'm not
No, I
a
know,
publicist, though.
but I'm just saying how I would pitch myself, and you would do
right.
a similar thing. You know, I'm a writer, and then so look, what are journalists but writers?
Mhm.
So that's an instant connection with another writer. Oh, what are you working on today, Kristen? They'll want to know.
Or saying like, I'm saying no on behalf of, yeah, I can promote myself, no problem. Like,
but
I know to say like, hey, I'm a developmental editor and a book collaborator. I work in publishing. Here's some, like, here's a client list if you ever want.
Yeah.
Subject matter experts.
Exactly.
Okay.
But you would actually, when they understand that you have a capacity for a lot of stories or a lot of pitches, their ears perk up, because then you become, like, especially for other freelance writers, right? I had a woman last night, she writes for like Cosmo and Allure, like all the top magazines, right? So I said to her, hi, I'm an international publicist. I've got tons of story ideas for you, endless. So always call me when you're in a pinch for an idea, because she's got to put food on the table by writing. And so then she's like, I said, but I'm going to lead with this one client. And it was an agri-hood, right? So it was like, had like a big environment, because I could see on her website that she was a tree hugger like me. So I went environmental first, because I could see from her owned assets online of what she was actually talking about and interested in. Right. So inside that, first you got to build that relationship, get to know that person, what beats their drum. And then, oh, guess what? I noticed that you, I noticed that you're an artist and you love seahorses. Just using Tracy. Right. I went to the ocean one time, and I just recently wrote a book about this scuba diver's experience with an octopus. I don't know. I'm just grabbing. Right. But
or here, could you do an example from somebody else on here? So Gary Buckman is on the call, and Gary is well, can he just give a 15-second?
But no, because your question was about you speaking about clients. So this is about you, Kristen.
So I don't have his bio right up in front of me, so I might screw up a few of the details. Forgive me, Gary.
Doesn't just go.
So Gary is a former gymnast who broke his neck and came back from paralysis, but he's also went on to open up his own gymnasium to train athletes. And he was one of the coaches for the women's, I think the women's Olympic team or the junior nationals team or something like that. He can correct me. Okay, so big deal, recognized. So how would I position him to somebody?
It depends on who you're speaking to. So, right, it depends on who so if it's ESPN, then they're going to be talking about, something about what happens after injury, or what's breaking in the news this week is Japan's Olympic head, he stepped down from his position because he said some sexist comments about women. I bet Gary would have given that he's in a sport that's female dominated, I bet he would actually have an interesting perspective on what's happening over in Japan right now. You see, but it doesn't even matter about that. What matters is that Kristen's relationship with the Katies and the Marvins and the Marjories of the world, they don't, as you and me, we always put our clients before ourselves, but we can't forget, those of you who are information officers or representing other people, that they've got to make a connection to you. Otherwise, they'll never remember you.
Right.
Let alone like how to contact you to get to Gary.
So that is something that those types of press people would be open to a relationship with somebody like me, even though I'm not doing that as my primary within the scope of what I normally do.
Yeah, I mean, I've got that columnist that I usually work with, Elizabeth Bernstein over at the Wall Street Journal. She writes a column called Bonds. Okay, and you all can look her up, and she's always looking for people to talk to her, and she would be like, you would be a pinch hitter for her when she can't find anybody about her topic, because journalists sometimes can't find the exact example, they're crafting a story with characters. Like, this is what they literally say, right? They've got their source that's actually the educational piece, the doctor, right? The person who's got the body of work. Then they've got the profile story, or the ones who are experiencing, like the everyday Joe, the everyday Jane, right? In this case, Gary could be an expert in athletic endeavors, but also in recovery as a person himself. Meanwhile, they have no access to him unless they're going to call him directly, or somebody that he knows, like yourself.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome, Kristen. I think as we close, everybody, thanks, Kristen. It's really important, if you're representing other people, to get that while you can lead with the people that you represent, the relationship exists with you. If they don't think that like for Marvin's like, I just want the truth. If they don't think that I'm authentic as a publicist and that I'm giving them the straight scoop, if I don't get back to them or keep my word, then that reflects on everybody I represent. And they reflect on me, right? So, and Clayton was so lovely about that. Like, he knew that. Like, he's like, I want to do good by you too, Michelle, right? And it's reciprocal like that. We've gone way over. That's okay, because NAS will actually clean it up. And but Hannah's dying to go because she's got kids to take care of and whatnot. So if you have any questions that haven't been answered, then go ahead and write us at hannah@wasabipublicity.com. The next call is going to be at this time next week. We're going to be interacting with Clayton and getting him ready for an actual interview. Okay. So stay tuned, and Clayton, don't worry. I will make sure that that you are prepared. Okay. And be looking at the blog, and then also ask anything that you need. One of the things that I wanted you to really do as a homework piece between now and next week is practice your own talking points, your own sound bites. And we'll save a little bit of time to really craft like the sound bites for Clayton. And so come to the next session with what you think your sound, like, just dream a little bit about how you want to be quoted. And then we're going to talk about how to actually move those quotes into the interview process, so then that actually shows up in the news cycle about you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.